And you're welcome to give us a call on 011-542-2186, or you can join us on social media. Joining us in studio is Lakite Gisho, an attorney and a human rights lawyer. And we also have Dr. Anthony Townsend, a clinical psychologist, and Chris Malimaja. He's with the Sanko Gauteng Provincial Chairperson. And good evening to you, gentlemen, and thanks so much for joining us. Let's just start, Dr. Townsend. I mean, these kind of incidents are very regrettable, particularly when we are so hell-bent at trying to create a cohesive society that is multiracial, anti-racism, etc. What do you think the impact of this is on the psyche of communities generally?
Well, it's largely a negative impact because, of course, instances such as these start to splinter communities, splinter psyches, and make a huge case for the fact that inequality really needs to be stamped out in many instances. Unfortunately, for an instance like this to be carried out, it requires one to treat another human being as an object, and that really is counterproductive to the society we're trying to build. And hopefully, such instances such as these would be sort of acted upon in the same spirit as done in this particular case to stop that.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone beyond being a prank because it's gone viral, and had this not been in the public space, chances are that it could have either gone even worse for Victor Molotwa. In your view, do you think that this could be a deterrent from what the judge handed down in terms of her judgment or conviction?
Yes, it appears that it might be a deterrent, but remember, this is just found, the sentence is not yet known. So one would be able to say, yes, it can be a deterrent only after we have heard what the judge is going to say in terms of the sentence. But what we can console ourselves with, obviously, they have been found guilty. And it's a good precedent, so that people must know that you can't do these things anymore. And the reason why I feel that perhaps it's important that we must be able to deal with these things once and for all is because it's a criminal offense, yes, but at the same time, there is racist undertones, attitude in this particular crime, and that makes it even worse.
And what do you make of initially the Coffin duo, as they've now become known? They're denying that the intention was not to murder or to assault or kidnap. It was essentially just to scare him, and the accusation that he had stolen from their property.
Well, I suppose if we look at the fact that they're arguing they had a different intent behind what was happening, whether it was a primary intent to scare or a primary intent to harm, it doesn't change the fact that the actions undertaken were deeply sadistic. There was a lot of pain and suffering and psychological trauma suffered by the victim in this particular instance, and irrespective of the overarching intent, the impact of their actions have huge consequences and are ultimately damaging either way.
Yeah, short of saying that, I mean, would you say that they're pathological racist in their action or their intent?
It would be difficult to suggest based on the fact that we only have one instance of behavior to go off in this particular case, but what we do know is that in order for them to be able to carry this out, they had to treat their victim as less than human, which is a hugely problematic sign, psychologically speaking.
All right, we also have on the line from Sanko, Gauteng Provincial Chairperson. Thank you so much, Mr. Malimaja, for joining us. Just your view in terms of the court proceedings so far.
Thank you very much, Cindy, and the other gentlemen who are there, and the entire viewers of AN7. Let me start by saying, Cindy, whether we like it or not, South Africa is becoming a banana republic, where people with authority, they decided to just play with authority. There's nothing to celebrate around what happened today. How do you celebrate a situation where somebody has been found to be guilty? This is what the judge is saying, but decided to extend the bail. What will happen in case tomorrow these two people are gone and we don't know where to find them? Are we not playing in the hands of criminals? It's like, to me, the very same judge is still going to plead with them. Can I sentence you? I'm telling you, mark my word today. On the 23rd October, I wish I'd be next to you. You will come and agree with me. The very sentence that we are wishing to let it be harsh is going to be the first one of Oscar, where we had to even appeal, then it has to recall, then it get at least. Because here, if you check properly, it has got the element of race. It has got the element of undermining people's life. Then where will these people run to? If they run there, then the very same judge says, no, I'm extending the bail, you can spend a few days with your families. If as a black person, there will be all sorts of security measures to ensure that these people are not seen any outside of the court. They go down to jail. They wait for their sentence. But it's unfortunately that in South Africa, if you are in certain race and certain color, you are given certain privileges.
Mr. Malemaja, let's just find out from Retekisho whether there was an oversight on the judge's pronouncement. But before we go there, let's take a caller. Moses in Tembisa, good evening to you. Hi, Moses.
I'm fine.
Good,
yeah,
thanks.
I'm just worried. I know that justice should prevail, but if someone committed an offense, let's deal with the offense, not put a political view. You understand? Because at the end of the day, those people they are charged with assault, GPS, attempted murder. I don't understand. If those people they really committed attempted murder, let's be attempted murder. Let's not put politics into justice, because justice is injustice. If I stole something which is worth 2 days fine, let's be that. Let's not put politics into justice because we are mistaken. Because I'm white, if I committed an offense, I should be judged more. It's not justice. Because you are black, if you have done this, you should be judged this. It's a problem. Because if you think justice and politics is a problem.
Moses, again, we'll test that with our legal counsel here, whether the judge indeed has erred in her judgment. We'll come back to that. Felix in Mbombela, good evening to you.
Thank you, Cindy, for taking my call.
Yes, sir. What's your comment or question?
Oh, yes. I just wanted to say almost the same thing that he said, but I believe that the judge has done right. He has just convicted these guys based on the crime they committed. And there is no crime like racism. And if you look at all those crimes they committed, but she never said once, I'm convicting you for racist attack. She never said that. She convicted them for attempted murder and all those other convictions. So it was not about racism. See, there is no crime like that. Let me say, if somebody stole my car, does it really matter if it's black or white? My car is stolen. If somebody killed my father, does it really matter if it's white or black? My father is dead. He's not going to be less dead because he's killed by a white man or more dead because he's killed by a black person. So there's no crime like racism.
All right,
Let us just face it and say crime is crime and we must deal with crime. Not put racism.
All right, thanks so much, Felix. As Dr. Townsend was saying that you can't convict or test the undertones of racism. But I just want to go back in terms of the attempted murder charge in itself. The severity, is it not serious enough to warrant the accused remain behind bars, in your view?
Yeah, I think I agree with the prosecutor of this case, because the prosecutor made it quite clear to say these are very serious crimes, not only the attempted, but a number of them, kidnapping and all of that. Now, one would have assumed that perhaps the judge, in trying to deter people to continue with this type of crime, would also not have let them go out, in the sense that it's quite serious, but also their life might be in danger. Remember, this thing is worldwide. It's known, and people might not be happy with what has happened, and they might be able to go for them. So also in terms of saving their own lives, the judge may have said, no, I'm reminding you inside. But it didn't happen because the judge has his own reasons why he didn't feel like he wants to do that. But I also want to comment on the issue of, yes, we agree that this is a criminal offense. There's no doubt about it. But what is critical is to look at the undertones, the reasoning behind the offense itself. You know, it's informed by a racist attitude. I don't think if there was a white person in the same situation of this man, they would have acted the same way. That's why I still maintain that I think it does have a racist undertone, and that is very critical for us to be able to deal with that matter in that sense.
But how do you deal with it if you take the preamble of the law, and as you were saying that the judge had to go through the various processes, the mitigating circumstances, aggravating, etc., to come to the conclusion that, you know, they are found guilty on these particular charges? How then do you deal with that, you know, the racism element of it, or dynamic of it, within the parameters of the law?
Yeah, no, I know it's quite difficult, but what is critical is that you need to look at your history, where we're coming from, and what has happened throughout the 23 years that we have been living in South Africa with this type of attitude that has been continuously, regularly happening in our country. And then on the basis of that, you look at this crime against that. and be able to say, no, but this thing has been continuously happening.
Yeah,
and
but we can say that
it.
we are all equal in front of the law.
Yes, we are.
Okay, all right. That satisfies me. Moses, or rather Felix, or Simon, Komo Kopane, good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Simon.
o sa ke batla go tlhalosetsa story ke kopa motsutshunyana wa gago o tlhalosetse gore khona o tlhale ere le re wo moso ke tla le ka o bolela o bana ke itse Setswana fela le Afrikaans bana ke a kena sekolo ANC kana go yana Messina ba tsaya di bomb ngwana maka sa le topa hand grenade ya explode mfisa million khaula le tswa mfisa di private party a se tlhokofala ka 2005 immetile ka 79 mofu ngwana maka o tlhokofetse ale mabitleng each and every month re patela mofu ale ka mabitleng o itse ke tsamaile ngwa o sesi kwa bo 13 bo felong ka lata AfriForum isi khale case ye e tshwere ke AfriForum and but luna basuthu le ntate ena le nka mo stadium ha ke reporta ko basuthu ba nkisa kwa le kwa ba mputse bogapeletse gore na ke bomba ya makgoa as many years my dad can wear the story by the ANC die oor altyd die bom geplant in Messina. Hulle dryf vir my dat ek die story praat want ek sê die ANC is die terrorist van die ANC was betrokke. As my broer doodgaan, die private pad van my was soos wat man moet wees.
Ja, maar Simon, we got the gist of it. So jy sê net AfriForum het nou vir jou ondersteun, hulle het vir jou gehelp. Bou 2 seats AfriForum, more ANC government ipaletse ko teng.
Why none ki report a story say mo hulu na basuthu lona lim block or cases.
All right, Ruth Papa, yeah, we're very sorry to hear about the difficulties and being sent from pillar to post. Babu Jongilanga in Klerksdorp, good evening to you.
Good evening, Cindy. Cindy zokhuluma isiZulu.
Kulungile.
Yebo, yazini Cindy ukutshela. I-apartheid ayikapheli. And ngoku khona iba strong okwaphatha iANC iApartheid icolor film bayijike nje bayenza icolor film so ayikho into ephelileyo akho apartheid ephelileyo.
All right, Babu Jongela.
Yeah. Strong.
Yeah, okay, but we hear you. He says that, the instruments of apartheid are still manifesting themselves in South Africa. It's even become more prevalent since democracy. Remale Maja, your view just on the comments made from our viewers.
You see, Cindy, if you listen carefully, everybody's not happy with the whole thing. It tells you that the judge herself has really erred here. And this was not regarded, it must not happen again. You are the very same person who is saying this was a public concern. How being a public concern, then they just get this extension of some sort. How do we say we've got a good justice system that is taking care of all South Africans who are saying we are all before the eyes of the law? How do we keep people before the eyes of the law if people are given such relaxed sentence to even go and spend time with their families?
All right, let's just get a view from Dr. Townsend. And I hear what the callers are saying, and I think it's a very pristine time in our democracy, the second transition, to deal with issues of the past. And when these kind of incidents occur, we're very uncomfortable, in part, to admit that indeed apartheid still manifests itself not only in our attitudes, but how we relate to each other, not in cosmopolitan areas like suburbia and major cities, but in far-flung places where the likes of Victor Molochwa don't have personal agency to stand up for themselves.
No, absolutely. And look, it still runs rife in many areas, and unfortunately all forms of inequality are something that we're actively trying to combat as a society on all occasions. Unfortunately, what's required more and more in these times is not to see this as a counteraction of retributional justice all of the time, one side hurting another side, but much more in the spirit of trying to understand each other and try and contain such incidents so that we don't let it generalize and contaminate society in a wider sense. And hopefully in these sorts of instances we can keep doing a job of doing that.
And did the judge exercise, I suppose there is a level of discretion that the judge can use when it comes to the issue of bail, considering the seriousness of the charges. In your view, was that a good judgment to make, to let them go?
No. In my view, as I indicated earlier on, it wasn't. I thought if you want to deter people not to continue with this type of criminal racist undertone crime or offense, you deal with them in a manner that is harsh. so that others must not be able to follow suit. So my view was to say, I think they should have been reminded inside. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think that what will happen after the sentencing, they will appeal. And when they appeal, the possibility is that they will want to stay outside again until the appeal will be able to conclude. And the possibility is that the judge may be able to say, I extend it. And that will be a problem, you know, because we want these people to feel that it's not correct for them to act in the manner in which they acted.
Especially when we're nurturing a fragile democracy.
Yes.
Simpiwe in the Western Cape, good evening to you.
Good evening, sis. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I don't think we should elevate the question of the judge's discretion on releasing of these two guys to, at this stage, the racist side of the offenses that have been committed. The judge was clear when she called upon the two parties, the state and the defense. She asked as to the bail legislation, the bail issues that are involved, do they permit these two gentlemen to be released or not? The considerations were around the bail legislation itself, considering that they attended trial throughout, they did not pose any danger to flee, they are rooted within the country, possibly they have farms or businesses, and there is no threat of them fleeing and not coming back to stand the sentence this time around. That limiting it on the legal issue, on the bail legislation, the judge decided to exercise her discretion to release the guys. The question of whether this now may have some racist undertones may have an impact on the sentence the judge may decide to impose. It's an aggravating factor which the judge may decide now to take into account in imposing a harsher sentence.
All right, thank you for that clarity. It makes sense. Thank you so much. I didn't know about the Bail Act in itself, that obviously there's certain conditions or criteria that you need to satisfy. Simpiwe, thank you. Mhlongo in KwaZulu-Natal, good evening to you.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, Bonijan.
Sikhona kunjani?
Siyaphila.
Sikhona ukhuluma nomhlongo. Man, noma singithokozisa isinqumo esenziwe ijaji mamayelana nelendo nalamadoda amabili amhlophe abasesimeni sokucisha kubulala umfana umuntu wakithi. Kodwa into engiphethe ngabe yodwa ukuthi ukuba bekuwumuntu omnyama njenganamhlanje ngabe ulele kwesimnyama isisele. Yileyo nto emhlizweni yami engiphatha kabi ngoba ekugcineni uzothulela umuntu lo akahamba yosebenza emphakathini wakithi asebenze agcine ngayejele ngoba unemali. Thina esingenamali sibonakala sengathi kuleli izwe siphatheka kakhulu kakhulu. All
right, Babu Mhlongo, thank you so much. Loosely translated, saying that if you have money, if you are white, that the law tends to be more lenient towards you, regardless of the crime you've committed. I mean, that's something that I don't know if it's been proven necessarily, but just your view to satisfy Babu Mhlongo.
Well, of course, we have a lot of anecdotal evidence suggesting this to be the case. I defer to my colleague around the legal precedent suggesting it, but I think what's important here is whether it's an objective fact or not, it is a perception that is being generated, which is hugely problematic for our society. The second we give the impression that if you're of a certain upbringing or you have a certain skin tone, that's going to confer onto you privilege, we're defeating the aims of what we're trying to construct as a society.
But why should people not hold that view? In your opinion?
No, I think it's quite clear that that view is whole because there are a number of examples that one can be able to show indeed that is a case. And it might be a perception, but I think that perception is a very true perception, because in most cases, most people that are struggling in terms of the law itself, perhaps is because they don't have the necessary people that can assist them. They are always the ones that are suffering, the black people are suffering. But the whites, they find it very easy to go through this process. A typical example is what happened to this guy who was running, what happened with him. Currently, the state had to appeal and all of those things just to make sure that he gets the necessary punishment that is supposed to get. So I'm saying that is a perception, but it's true in my view.
Mr. Malimaja, we still have to leave this process to the judicial or the law to take its course. But in your view, the harsher sentence may also not necessarily be the judge's only option, considering that it may be first offense or any other mitigating circumstances. Are we ready for that kind of outcome?
Yes, indeed. Without preempting what the judge will do, I'm just saying, as Sanko would like to advise the judge that let it be devised in a way that the sentence must not seek to undermine our justice system. Because should it happen that the sentence be very light, I'm telling you, people are going to revolt, not now, but in future. And people are going to have a perception that when you've got money, you are not going to be sentenced. You are going to live life. You can do whatever. Then there will be no judge that will pass on you. We are appealing that let the judge be decisive and ensure that satisfy us. The only way to satisfy us is to set an example. For how long are we going to have these kind of cases where, without saying, because when we say it has got the element of race, people want to add to differently because the judge never mentioned racism there. It is clear that these people have got money, being white, they decided to play with blacks, being poor. And at the end of the day, there's this technicality of playing with the sentence. And I agree with the last caller who said they will be given this kind of, as much as you said, it's a first offender, you have been attending, you have been coming, therefore get a lighter sentence. It is wrong, and it is wrong as it also happened with the Mugabe's fight. It is wrong.
All right, thank you so much, Chris Malimaja. He is Sanko Regional spokesperson in Gauteng. Just very briefly, in how when we interact as a multicultural society, not to use this necessarily as a or to evoke rather the emotions of our bitter past, with that sense of hope that this might be isolated or sporadic. It's not generally what is happening in the country.
It's very important that we do that psychologically, and what we find in instances of any kind of hatred or prejudice, what's useful is when a community comes together to generate shared understandings and actually unify around it. When we allow ourselves to do that, I think we'll start opening up conversations to show this is an isolated incident and we're not going to let it toxify broader relationships in our society. It's important that we start to understand each other and treat each other with human dignity rather than objectify one another and start to retaliate about things.
Do you share the same sentiment?
I do not, with respect. I don't think it's an isolated issue because, as you correctly stated, we might be able to understand our rights and be able to respond accordingly. But what about those that are staying in the farms, that are on a daily basis have to go through these processes? And my worry is, you see, we black tend to be able to go to them and say, look, we want to resolve these issues, we want to live together. But I don't see that coming from them, the white guys, to say, no, let's sit down and try and resolve these issues. There are always people who feels that, no, but we don't want to live with you.
Yeah, I'm taking you outside. Yeah, I'm taking you outside your, I suppose, profession.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Townsend, just to very briefly respond to Retekisho.
Well, I suppose my feeling would be that I don't think we can necessarily say anyone from a particular cultural orientation is less open to it. I imagine we have stalwarts on both sides, and our hope ultimately is to give everyone the opportunity to actually engage in something reconciliatory in this case.
No, we live by hope and
Must
faith.
I also respond?
No. We're seriously out of time. Lucky Tekisho pushing the envelope there. Human rights lawyer and Dr. Anthony Townsend, clinical psychologist. And we had Mr. Chris Malimaja, Sanko Gauteng provincial chairperson. And thanks indeed for calling. We're back after this.